What's up, everybody? What's going on? What's going on, man? Welcome back. We are live, Hurricanes Unfiltered live. We're live in the building. I have the distinct pleasure to have with me Peter Ariz from Canes Pulse. When I tell you he's in the know, he's in the know. Best podcast out there, the best podcast out there for the University of Miami. I'm telling you, he's better than mine. He knows more about this than anybody. Every day in the building, he's been there since pretty much all summer. If you haven't done so, check out Kane's Pulse. Subscribe to that channel right now. Don't wait. Peter, thank you for jumping on board. I did Hurricanes Unfiltered live last year every Monday night. I think this year I'm doing it every Sunday night at 8 o'clock. This is the bring back. We brought it back since football
Awesome.
ended, and I appreciate you jumping on board, man. How's everything going? How's everything going in Coral Gables right now?
Doing great, man. Very humbling to hear those words from you, Rudy. When you first reached out to me, I told you before the show, man. I remember you from way back in the day, man. So you've been following this thing and covering this thing, for a long time, man. And it's awesome to see the work you're doing. I know you've kind of relaunched this thing as well last year, and excited to see where you take this thing, man. So honored to be a guest on your show today, man. And just good vibes, man. I know when you were covering the team, it was some interesting times, right? It was some interesting times to say the least. So it just and that's when I was really getting into it, like in 2010, 2011, even when I was in high school, starting to cover the team, and those were dark days. Those were very dark days, and we had some tough times, right? And some, quite frankly, some embarrassing times, right? Like, not as fans, and just like being up close with this stuff, it was not fun. And we're very lucky that this thing is where it's at right now, and we deserve it. We've held strong through the tough times, man. But I'm excited for this season. I think last year was just kind of the appetizer, right? Like, we didn't know what the fate was going to be there, if they were going to get into the playoffs or not. And then obviously they go on this run, and I think everything has changed, in terms of the trajectory of the program because of that run, and everything's just been accelerated. And man, the first week of practice was awesome being out there, and we'll talk about a lot of this stuff today. It's a deep team though, man. It's a very, very, the most talented team, I think, just looking at it up close, that I've had the pleasure of covering. And I think, we're all kind of in the same boat there, because it's been a while since we've seen anything even close to this.
When did you graduate from I guess high school first? I don't know how old you are. I'm almost 50. I'm 48. How old are you?
So I'm 32. I graduated in 2012, and I graduated Miami in 2016. So
Okay.
those were the golden slash
Okay.
going into the Richt era there. It was little bit of probation there, and you know my dad went to UM, and I've told the story
Yeah.
before. The first season that my dad was 83 graduate. The first season I started uh, going to games was 2001. That was the first year my dad got us season
Yeah.
tickets. I was 7 years old, right? So I remember, but it's not like I
Yeah.
was, breaking down the games. The first loss I saw was the Ohio State game the year later. So I was to say I was spoiled, right? As a lot of people from my era were, and shoot, your era,
Mine. We were
obviously, right?
spoiled.
Like you were that was the spoiled of spoiled right there. So it's been a journey, right? It was really, for me, I saw the best, and then I saw the worst of it. So it was a painful it was a painful kind of fall there for the 15, 20 years there. But I think, like I said, that's what makes all of this that much sweeter, man. And then recruiting wise, I know you follow the recruiting and you cover the recruiting. That's the fun thing, I think, for me, because as much as the on-field results are still like that's everything, right? None of
Yeah.
the other stuff really matters. But for so long, we were getting punked on the recruiting trail, in terms of like letting all these other schools come in here, take the best talent from South Florida. And that's just not only is it not happening right now, but the recruiting business is conducted a certain way now. And it's a very, the operation is very business-like in terms of how they do things. And I think that as you look at where they stack up in the grand scheme of things, like the whole operation is top five in the country. I'm not just talking about like how what the class is going to be. I'm just talking about the NIL program, the pitch that they have, the unique ability for them to sell the city of Miami and the NIL opportunities that come with it outside of just the paychecks, right? And not every kid's made for it, but man, this program is really uniquely positioned, I think, for the next 5 to 10 years here with Mario, with the extension that he signed now. And I always say it, man, like how many coaches can you legitimately say in college football are locked in where they're at, whether their decision or not, right? Like, for example, I think Steve Sarkisian's a good coach, but he's on the hot seat in Texas right now.
Hell yeah, he is.
Like Kirby Smart is probably the closest thing to it. He's not jumping. Kirby Smart's not jumping to the NFL. But any of these other guys, like Marcus Freeman, could go to the NFL in a year
for sure. Hell, they wanted to fire Ryan. They wanted to fire Ryan Day at Ohio State 2 years ago.
Yeah, and listen, if he would have, if they would have gone on and made another run last year, guess where he'd probably be? He'd probably be he might be in the NFL. Like there's been a lot of chatter. He's been in the NFL before.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, he's got Ohio State's one of the best jobs in college football. He's one of the most powerful guys in the sport, right? He runs that whole operation. I don't know why he'd want to leave, but Mario is as locked in as any coach in the country, and the stability is something that I think we take for granted sometimes now. Like, but that's the lucky thing about having a guy like Mario who we know wants to be here and is not going to go to the next level or anything like that.
So take yourself back. Oh, by the way, ask your dad 1983 about Jack Fernandez.
Okay.
Because he's my cousin. He was on the 83 national championship team. So I was at the Orange Bowl when we won it the first time. I was 6. And we were massively spoiled that decade, going into about 1995. And then the wheels fell off for a bit.
Yeah.
And then Butch Davis brought it back around. And then that's when I jumped into Inside the U with Chris and David. And I had to watch Drek every single year, 6 and 6, 7 and 5, 5 and 7, and argue with people on message boards as to why the Kings were going to stink, because we were there every day. And when you're there every day, you know what you hear and you know what you talk about, and you get the intel, and people say, no, we're going 12-0. I'm like, no, we're not. People just hate that. Or you hate to kill the excitement, but it's like, if you're expecting 12-0, so bringing that to right now, is this the most excited you have ever been as a Miami Hurricane fan? Coming into
I would say that listen, when I was a young kid, right, and you just have that youthful excitement, that's one thing. Yeah. I would say that it's the most excited I've been with real reason to back it up, right? Yeah. Because I always try to do this exercise, right? Even when we look back a year from where we are right now, Rudy, what were the questions going into the year? There was a lot of questions. You had a new defensive coordinator, right? That, by the way, they flipped the secondary completely, right? They brought in a lot of talent in the secondary, but other than that, you were pretty much saying, hey, we need Ruben Bain to come back, because remember, Ruben Bain's sophomore year, he was banged up, did not have a good year. Mesidor came back and had a good year, but he wasn't fully as dominant as you knew he could probably be, right? So you were banking on those two taking huge leaps, right? You did not. You were expecting them to do it, but we didn't know that for sure to be the case. Defensive backs, whole new room, very, very talented room, but you didn't really know what to expect. Linebacker, you would bring in Mo Toure. You still had the same Wesley Basanta who was on the team the year before. You actually lost Kiko Mawanoa, who was a fifth round pick to the Jets, right? So, and a very productive player. Didn't have a great last year, but very productive college player, and a guy that most people would take any year. So those were the questions about the team going into last year. We know what ended up happening, right? You have a lot more, I think, even though losing Bain and Mesidor, I think you have a lot more pieces that you can point to and say, hey, continuity year 2 in this defense. You kind of know what to expect. It may not look exactly the same because those monsters are gone, but You have the two D tackles who might be the best duo in the country. You're replacing with Damon Wilson, who could be a top 20 sort of pick in the country, right? Who
Yeah.
was coming from the SEC, almost 10 sacks. And by the way, former 5-star himself,
Yeah.
who it's not like this is a guy who we're talking about who's just like a journeyman, like
Exactly.
kind of replacing. He was a bigger recruit than both Bain and Mesidor coming out of high school. Marquise Lightfoot, 5-star in his own right. So, Armando Blunt, who's really that first year to me is almost like a throwaway redshirt year because he had reclassed and he was playing and getting his feet wet, but last year should have been his freshman year, which for a D lineman is a huge deal. So expecting him to take a big leap, that's so. Going back to the question of that you originally asked me of, hey, is this the most excited you've been? It's yes, because there's real reason I think to back it up. Like we were very excited going into last year, Rudy, but that we just talked about the defense. Carson Beck, we felt confident about him, but you still had the questions of he didn't play at all in the spring.
Exactly.
Flip to this year, Darian Mensah, he's fully healthy. You know that he had the entire spring with his receivers, so there's no guessing games in terms of how they're going to come out of the gate. You don't have that tough start to the schedule that you had last year, so you can kind of like work your way into some of these questions about the offensive line that we may have. And then you bring back everything you bring back in the running back room. You add to the wide receiver room, which, by the way, not to get too off track, but receiver-wise, obviously we don't have to speak about Malachi. We know what Cooper Barcade is. But I will say I do think that people are underrating the loss of C.J. Daniels a little bit and what he brought to the room, Rudy, because – obviously, we know the impactful plays that he made, the leadership he brought to the room was really good, and not that Mally and some of these other guys can't kind of step up there, but that's just going to be something interesting to watch because CJ was a real professional, right? I think they have the talent to make up for it. It's not like he was a first, second round pick, but he's a guy who's a pro, and he made some nice contested catches for you. So I think that'll be who can replace that? We think it's Josh Moore potentially because of the size and speed combination that he brings, but I think consistency is going to be key for him. Cam Vaughn coming over from West Virginia, Vandrevius Jacobs from South Carolina. You've got a lot of different guys there, but I think, look, Daniels is going to be a guy that we end up missing one way or another.
I agree. I like CJ Daniels a whole lot. I mean, he was an older guy as well, so you brought that vet experience. He's been through it and all that. Looking at his team right now, I mean, I remember last year when we're losing Ruben Bain, we're losing Mesidor, and I'm saying our D line could be better. It could be better. I mean, they're loaded. I know we just lost Hayden Lowe. I presume there was. I always attribute guys that decide that they don't want to be a part of it because they were not cracking depth charts. I don't know if that's a correct assumption or not. There's other things behind it,
man.
But
the low thing's weird. Yeah, look, the low thing's weird. I don't know that he didn't want to be a part of it, Rudy. I think that the weird part about that one is that, like, up until even a week before he was gone from the team, he was still with the team, working out with the team and stuff. I think that it's really a case of a guy shooting himself in his in the foot. Repeatedly, right? He had really multiple opportunities because, look, we understand that something happened, as Mario called it, personal matters back in spring. He didn't practice, so it wasn't an injury, but he got a second opportunity. He was with the team, working out with the team all summer long. I know that there's been some rumors about arguments with a teammate and stuff like that. From what I understand, that was a while ago. That wasn't something that just popped up now. But again, this is the culture that you've created now, that if this is something where it's a team decision and they say, look, we want guys who are kind of on the similar mindset of where we're going at right now. It sucks that you lose a guy that you really, look, you invested in the guy. He's a 5-star recruit that you flipped from the other side of the country. You put money into that, and you're gonna, there's no ways around it other than like it was a miss. Right, it was a bad investment. He didn't hit, but that's where now these other evaluations become very, very important, Rudy. That's where, like, okay, you go and get a Keona Davis, for example, who from Nebraska, who that's not a name that I think a lot of people are saying, hey, that was a big pickup in the portal, but hey, he's getting paid like a big time. He was a big time wanted recruit. He was a guy who played a lot at Nebraska, can play some defensive tackle, can play a bigger defensive end for you. So that's where these evaluations now become very important. You know, a third Scroggins who got to play a lot last season, can he step up into a bigger role? Armando Blunt, we've already talked about him, but he's going to have to take his game to another level. And I think when you talk about replacing Bain and Mesidor, outside of just the pass rush stuff, it's what they did against the run.
Yeah,
that's the quiet part that, you know, some of these games were just well, the one play that we all remember from Bain is the Ohio State play where he just ran through the offensive lineman's face and on that stretch and you know, met the running back 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage there. But I think Blunt's capable of doing some of that stuff, man. I really do. Again, the Hayden Lowe thing is it's an unfortunate loss. But back in the day, and when I say back in the day, that's even 5-6 years ago with Manny Diaz, guys were given 4 or 5 opportunities to stay around because you didn't have anything, like you were that desperate talent-wise, Rudy, in the locker room. That's why you would see every year, though, these teams quit after losing a game or two. And, you know, after you start 5-0 or you start 6-0 and then you lose a couple games because those teams weren't mentally strong the way that these teams are. And I think that's the positive. If you want to take a positive out of the Hayden Lowe thing, which is, you know, it's unfortunate that it went down like that. And by the way, I hope he gets it together because he's a super talented kid. Like, I hope whatever has held him back, like that light goes off for him and realizes, man, like I'm too talented to let this thing go to waste. But if you're a Canes fan, you got to say, hey, it is kind of nice that we don't have to worry about that distraction kind of hanging over us. And we know that and by the way, he was the other we saw, which I don't know. Again, don't want to get too much into details of a situation, but you saw another one, a John Tavius Wyman, a freshman who stepped away. So, like, you know that these guys are all hands on deck. If you're in that locker room right now, and I think that common goal is whether you're a first-year player or a fifth, sixth, or what year is Mo Toure and Chase Smith in? Like year 8, right?
38-year-old seniors.
Yeah, whatever year you're in, man. I think everyone kind of realizes that that goal is to go win the whole thing, man.
No, that's exciting. I feel bad for the kid, obviously, because you hope that he would, you know, pan out because he's a 5-star guy. But if you're at the point now where you're saying, well, you know what, we're cutting bait here, it's not working. Like you said, 5, 6, 7 years ago, they would have gone through this 10 times. You know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times.
Remember Jeff Thomas? Jeff Thomas. Oh my God! Like the person that comes up and it's like super talent, man, and it just. But like that stuff, as much as here's the thing, Rudy, like as much as we glorify certain stuff as Canes fans from the past and you know, for me watching the documentaries and seeing a lot of the stuff, like I'm not saying every person has to be every guy has to be a church goer,
choir boy.
But football character is a real, and this is, I've been an NFL agent as well. And you realize working with guys, right? Football character means, listen, being a pro football player, which is now being a college football player because they're getting paid.
Yeah.
And it's, by the way, sometimes even more difficult because they have to worry about class and all the other, and then now they have their NIL responsibility. Like there's a lot going on for them that it's a job. It is a real job that they're 18, 19 years old. A lot of them, they're a lot of stuff's put on their plate that maybe they were not prepared for. And that's what putting a real infrastructure around them is. But you need guys who are serious about their craft, serious about getting in the building every day and doing stuff outside of what they're required to do in terms of the film stuff, in terms of extra workouts. In the summer, Rudy, it's all they call it PLP, player led player led workouts, right?
Yeah.
And player led practices, I should say.
Yeah.
And that is all like listen, the coaches aren't there, but the coaches know what's going on, and they know who's showing up on time. And there's some guys that you get here in the spring, especially a lot of the young guys, and you get here in the spring and you learn their way around. Summer's an opportunity for them to really make an impact and grow. And some guys take that as an opportunity to take the next step and get themselves on the right foot for fall camp, which it leads into here. And some guys, they don't do what they need to do. But I think as a whole, man, these guys are they're dialed in, man, and it's exciting to see. It's exciting to see that it kind of permeate throughout these practices, because like the one thing that everybody said, all the insiders and all the people who are at practice say is, man, these are intense practices, right? And these aren't just us as the reporters. It's like the former players who know what it's supposed to look like, and a lot of the people who are in the building that, you know, are seeing this thing up close every day. And I think that's what's very, very exciting about what Mario's built.
Take yourself back 5 years. Miami loses that game to Georgia Tech on the the Don Chaney fumble, not a fumble, the clock issue where we could have just put our knee down. And then I'm sure you remember it, the center that we had to a transfer from Central Florida. I don't remember his name.
Yeah, Matt Lee.
He's in the
Yeah,
sideline saying what the hell what the hell that just happened here type thing. And then from that point on, the team completely fell apart, like you talked about.
Yeah.
But go back 5 years. Mario Cristobal makes that decision. I know people were losing their minds. I was losing my mind. I'm not going to lie about it, because I was calling for Mario Cristobal to be the head coach back in 2008.
Yeah.
I wanted him to be the head coach in 2008 over Randy Shannon. I was a big fan. I was a big fan of his at Oregon, but you did see those clock management things that you're like, why does this happen? But now you have that happen, and had they done something then, we would not be here right now. And I mean, he's completely flipped my opinion. I do think we still have game day play decisions, play calling decisions, even clock management decisions like that. I sometimes question. Like I thought that the way we played against SMU and Louisville, like I don't think you slow down. I don't think you slow down tempo against teams that you're just so much better than, and because it makes it harder. You make one mistake, and you lose. I would expect that we're going to see more tempo like we saw with Cam, maybe somewhere in between Cam and Carson Beck, but we'll go from 8 to like 10, 11 possessions. Is that something you think is going to happen? And how did you feel back then to now? How did you feel like back then to now, like how he's kind of maybe even changed a little bit, because he's still mad intense and I love it. But you see personality now with Pat McAfee and these different guys. You see him kind of chilling a little bit. And even last year, I don't know if you were in the press conference when Shannon Dawson was going back and forth with media about the outside zones and stuff like that.
And the A-gap,
he says, and then how he said that we were running them. We weren't running them. We were running straight into the back of the line. And then a week later, here comes these outside zones. Like, kind of listen to the media a little bit. I don't want to say it, but he did.
Yeah, so a few things, man. So first of all, going back 5 years, Rudy, I mean, I think, look, everyone, we can always question. There's always going to be questioning of game day decisions, whatever coach, and I think it was very much under the microscope at that point. My two things at that point that I kept me optimistic is, one, understanding how bad shape. Like I think Canes fans knew like how bad the situation was, but they didn't really understand, again, the entire operation behind the scenes in terms of like the weight room, the nutrition program, I call it's the infrastructure, right? And talking to a lot of times like the NFL scouts who were coming in at the time were just like, man, this thing that Manny's running, it's not. And again, Manny hadn't been a head coach, so it's not even like it's not even fully his fault. It's like he was learning that whole thing on the fly, right? And that's what we always talk about Mario. Man, he learned so much under Saban in terms of like, you got to hire all these support staff, you got to hire all these quality control, you've got to have a bigger, like straight up just a bigger staff, Rudy, which is what has happened, right? So I was still optimistic because I said, the way that this is going to be built, this isn't the NFL. Like you can't just sign all these free agents in 1 year and draft all these guys in 1 year and it's going to flip. It was going to take a few years. Now, to answer your question about which this is one of my favorite things to talk about in terms of Mario's changing of maybe his personality a little bit. I think this is who Mario's always been, Rudy. But here's the difference. Those first few years, what was he going to pound his chest about and talk about?
Nothing.
We all know
Nothing.
Mario is a guy that is, he doesn't want to hype things up that don't deserve to be hyped up. He speaks in very real terms. He speaks in like, this is what it is. You guys saw on the field what we've done against the SEC. That's just what it is. We're 5-0, 4-0 against them, whatever. The last 2 years, like he speaks in very factual terms, and he didn't really have anything he would have been. Listen, rival fans are still gonna be upset with how he talks now, but imagine if he was doing that when we didn't have anything to back it up with. Now I think he knows that this stuff is very positive in terms of like getting in front of the media and all that, because it helps recruiting, and no one monitors this stuff more than he does. He sees everything. So, which it is, I think that's probably the biggest misconception about him. Rudy is that, he's a big, tough guy. He's an offensive line guy. He doesn't want to change things. I disagree with that, because if you go back and now look the last couple of years, right? Everything, year one after Guidry, people didn't want Guidry fired year one. Mm-hmm. People wanted him fired mid-year, but there was not really much you were going to be able to do to change what was going on. It's not like you had a veteran underneath him that could have called the defense there that year, right? Every year he's pretty much made changes pretty quickly if it's needed to be made, right? He's switched coordinators, which I think early on you have questions about some of his hires there in terms of like, bringing in a Kevin Steele. That just didn't work, right? That sort of stuff he made some mistakes there, but the willingness to change, I think, has probably been more there than people would want to admit.
As someone, last year we make this run, and we're the SEC champions before we're the ACC champions. Crazy, because you beat Ole Miss, and who beat Georgia, and you beat Texas A&M. We do all that work. Is this for you, just for you, not from other people, but for you? Is this because I mean, you're in the national championship on your home field. I was there. I don't know if you were there or not. I'm guessing you may have been there. Okay. The sadness I felt sitting there, watching that 70% of that building was Indiana fans when they won the game, and I'm watching everyone walk out. I'm like, this building is literally 3/4 Indiana, right?
Yeah.
And
it was surreal.
I mean, real rough. And is it national championship or bust for you? Like, this is you're there. You've got it's like you can't take a step backward.
Yeah, it's such a
you tough. Hate it, but you hate. Well,
it's funny because like, what's funny is that I the question that's been asked to me all off seasons hasn't been. I haven't been asked this question, so I haven't even. What's been asked to me is it ACC or bust? But you taking a step further there makes me think. You know what? For me to say that it's tough to say national championship or bust. It's tough. I get it because we were there, right? And the run was so magical, and you're like, man, all that, like, well, for me as a fan, that's what it feels like as a fan, right? Yeah. From a fan's perspective, yes, right? Because it's like you now know what it feels like to get that close.
Yeah.
From a perspective of like analyzing where the program's at, Rudy, it's hard to say and like objectively saying, okay, this is the trajectory of where the program's at, because it's now been 2 years in a row with 10 wins, which hasn't, obviously they had 13, but 10 wins in the regular season. So to me, that's a huge step, but you got to win the next step for me in terms of establishing where this program's at, Rudy, is winning the ACC, because you can't. And this is what's it's kind of like the weird thing here, right? In terms of leaving this thing in the hands of the ACC, of the playoff committee potentially. It's like, not to get too far into hypotheticals, but you lose the Notre Dame. If you lose the Notre Dame game and then you don't win the ACC,
oh, you're done.
Outright,
you're done. You're not making playoffs.
So that's where when people ask me, like, do you have to win the ACC for it to be a successful season? Yeah, to me, yeah, because you're not probably making the playoff unless you beat Notre Dame. You beat Notre Dame, it's a whole different equation. Yeah. But as a fan, going back to your original question, that's probably what it feels like, Rudy. That because and like just talking to some of my buddies and stuff, like just jokingly, we're like, I went to A&M. That was an awesome experience on the road in College Station, seeing that win there. I went to the Ole Miss game. I could not make the Ohio State game. Yeah. So, but like as a fan, I'm like, I might skip the Notre Dame game this year on the road because it's like, just get me to the playoff already. Like, let's just fast forward it. So I get what you're saying there, but if you talk about keeping this thing in the right direction in terms of the like, you can't take a step back. You can't not make the playoffs, Rudy. That's of course, exactly. That you can't do that because then everything that we've talked about in terms of recruiting momentum and like the narrative's completely flipped now, right? Because the narrative now is, hey, Mario's not a QB killer. Mario has put now multiple first rounders in the trenches. Like they have been in the playoff, but then like you don't make the playoff this year for whatever reason, and it's like, whoa, well, they've taken a step back and they've only made the playoff once in Mario's 6 years. Like that's what it become. They completely flipped the narrative. So that's the no, absolutely can't happen. You have to make the playoffs. Like that's, and some people might be saying, yeah, well, duh, you have to make the playoffs. But that's where the season would be a complete disaster in terms of analyzing where the program's at. As a fan, yeah, championship or bust. That's especially coming off of how last season ended. Yeah, that's it's tough, man. But man, not that's a high standard. That's a high standard.
I mean, but that's the standard you want to build. Obviously, that's the standard that Ohio State's built, that Georgia built, that Alabama built. Yeah. If you don't win it all, then it's like, what is it, Ricky Bobby? If you're not first, you're last type thing. And obviously I take a step back and I see the bigger picture, of course. But I look at it from a fact of expectations. Now you've created expectations, and you love to create expectations. You don't want to go into the season saying, "Man, I hope we win 8 games," type thing. I'd rather say, I'm expecting to beat everybody. I mean, Notre Dame, I think we go up there and beat their ass too, personally.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why the circle jerk over Notre Dame and the circle jerk that SEC gets forever and the Big Ten gets forever. It's exhausting, as you know, for all of us. Because I would tell people when I was doing my lives last year, and everyone, the day that we lost to SMU, we were all probably had our head in our hands saying it's over, it's effing over. Yeah. God damn. And then the next day, because I thought the AP would stick it to us and put us at number 24. And then it'll be over. But when they put us at 18, even though we still should have been a top 10 team based on a resume at the time, and the fact that the CFP, we all know, follows the AP poll as a baseline. But everyone says, oh, no. The fans will say, that has something to do with it. No, it has a lot to do with it. So I go crazy over the opening polls every year.
Opening polls are the worst.
The 17 at Big Ten and SEC teams that beat each other and then just flip flop all season long. And God forbid Clemson loses the opener to LSU. I want Clemson to win that game because if they lose that game, they fall right at the poll. And now if we play them, the win doesn't matter. But if they win and they're ranked in the top 15, it matters more. It's just these teams just flip flop all year. Hell, Penn State's ranked in the top 20.
How? Missouri at like 25, right? Like, yeah, and I'm with you. Like, I want Virginia Tech to be better because you want them to go win 8-9 games so that when hopefully Miami wins that game, you're like, that can be a win that you're pointing at and you're kind of saying, well, that's what's different between that and then you'll get LSU finishing 9-3 and that as the number 14 team in the country or something, right? Like that's just the preseason polls are a horrible thing for the sport.
I agree.
It's agreed that and you know who actually speaks a lot about this is Rhett Lashley. He's been very out there about
Yeah.
how he said the other day, because Arkansas, I guess ESPN is hyping up Arkansas as having the toughest schedule in the country, and Rhett Lashley said, you know, we don't know who has the toughest schedule in the country when no one's played a single game yet. So
We don't, and it's so annoying because after that game, the next day when the polls came out, I did a live saying, "It's not over." I'm telling you, and I said, if we win out, we're making the playoffs. I said it every single week. And people were like, "You're crazy." If we win out, we're making the playoffs. And it's like they buckled down those last four, and they put belt to ass on everybody. I mean, they came in and put in work. I mean, that Pitt game was so impressive. The way they dominated that game on the road, you know, it was.
That's a game they lose. They lose.
Oh yeah,
12 out of the last 15 years.
Absolutely. So you see like that change going on, and all that. So yeah, those start. I always say the AP poll. I remember when I went through all the voters, and I saw this one guy has Miami ranked like 24th, 23rd, or there was one guy who had us ranked way down every single week. You're saying like, bro, how are you even a voter, man? This is or that lady that moved Florida up after they lost. Like,
I forget what game that was that they lost. Yeah,
they lost. It was the game before they played us, I think it was, and or whatever. You're sitting here like,
USF,
yeah, they lost to USF, and then they moved up in the poll, and this lady's like, well, like as if you think that doesn't matter. This is your job. Like it's embarrassing.
No, it's bad. But that's unfortunately that's still gonna be part of this stupid system, man. We'll see. I this whole just kind of following this whole thing, I've covered it on the page a decent amount in terms of like the potential bill here. That doesn't look like it's gonna go through here. I personally think that the best future for college football would be like collectively bargained, where like each of the conferences go to the TV networks and negotiate their own deals. But at the end of the day, man, Miami's day in the ACC is not going to be much longer. I think they'll be out of there in the next 5 years, one way or another. So
I wanted to ask you about that for sure, because I saw your video. You did a detailed video on it. It was like 35 minutes long, when you talked about all of this thing with the players that could come back, like Wesley the Saint, who I would take in a second if you wanted to come back. Like that would be without a thought. Like, come on, buddy. But would you? I'm almost of the thought of, when we're 6-6, our brand is still huge. It's still a huge brand. But when you're in the national championship, the brand is huge. It's massive.
Mm-hmm.
Is this? Would you be against going back to becoming an independent and scheduling who you want to schedule?
Dude, no,
your brand is massive. You can grab a TV deal from whoever you want. Someone will pay for it. You know that.
100%. I would be in. I'd be in all. Like I actually kind of threw that out there in one of the videos, because essentially they are right now under the way that it's proposed. Right, there would be and there's another change that they're trying to make now, where maybe this wouldn't be the case. But essentially, if a team wants to go from one conference to another, they would have to become an independent for 5 years before doing that. And at that point, you're not making money with the conference. But Rudy, I think there's an argument you made that when Miami left from the Big East to come to the ACC, they would have been better off being an independent, because what happens is you, as you kind of alluded to there, you control everything as a university right now. They don't have an AD right now, so that's one part of it. And I feel very confident with Joe Echeverria and Rudy Franz and the guys making a lot of these decisions right now. But at the end of the day, if you're an independent, imagine an Amazon Prime, right? Which now we're going to a whole other thing, because the stream, and we'd be pulling up these games on stream. But Netflix, we know they're getting it's a crazy concept. But can you imagine Netflix being the official partner of the University of Miami, and you have your own crew that does every game,
insane,
right? And you have a documentary every year for every team. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's not that crazy.
It sounds amazing.
It sounds amazing. Now, there's a lot of stuff that there's a lot of stuff that needs to work. To me, the hardest part, Rudy, would be the way that these schedules are changing, right? With the 9-game, the Big Ten and the SEC, and even the ACC now doing the 9-game, conference schedules. The big non-conference games are not really a thing, like as much as they have been in the past. Now they're becoming less and less. Like especially you see these early season slates, a lot of them are pretty bad here. So you got to find 12 teams a year willing to play Miami. That's the hard part is figuring that out. But you can get creative here. Who's to say that you don't get, some of these teams a piece of that money for those games, right? Like there's different ways that I think you can structure it that would be very enticing for some of these teams to play. And again, as you said it, the brand is unbelievable, right? Like I just think there's so many crazy possibilities. Like, hey, Michael Irvin having his own show on there, like that sort of stuff. I just think that our brand is so different and unique that a company like that would be able to pull off some pretty crazy stuff. Now, that's a long ways away from where we are now in terms of like what that could mean, but I'd be open to it, man. I think it'd be a very interesting concept for sure.
I mean, I grew up on independent Hurricanes in the 80s.
Exactly.
That was we were independent, and then we went over to the Big East really because of the other sports, not because of football. We weren't there. We were crushing everybody. We played everybody. We could play whoever we wanted, and I mean, heck, when you look at your schedule, like, oh, we got to play Boston College at home. Oh God, and every year the schedule is, and I want Vatek to be good because when they're good, it helps us. But they've had their problems. I think now they're going to be better with James Franklin walking in there. They'll go back to being a 9-10 win team, I would hope. But yeah, I would love to be an independent again. Play whoever you want. Let's play Notre Dame every single year. Unless they're too punk to not play us because we know they're punks.
I think Florida State would keep us on the schedule.
Florida State would keep us. No, FSU
Florida State would keep us on the schedule. And Florida State they'll probably be. They're looking ahead somewhere else too themselves, Florida State. But dude, go schedule a couple West Coast teams a year. Like they have that wacky Pac-12 where half those teams are looking for games themselves. Like pay an Oregon State to come down here and play. Like I'd rather play an Oregon State than a Central Michigan. Right?
Me too.
That's. You got to think outside the box a little bit here if you were to do this thing. As Lord Bakington says in the comments, Florida would not play us at all.
No, they won't.
We know they wouldn't. But yeah, man, I think there's an interesting possibility of what it would look like if you were an independent, which everyone's been so fixated on Big Ten, SEC, all that. But I think there's a discussion to be had at the very least.
People don't remember if you go back to the 80s, we played Michigan, on the road. Like we would play anybody. It didn't matter.
Imagine those games, man.
We would play everybody. I mean, I remember we played I believe it was David Klingler led Houston, and they were like this air raid offense, and we put the clamps on David Klingler like he was garbage, and that's what we used to do back in the day. It was so much fun to watch. And there's a couple questions here. If you answer them, someone asked about the Wyman situation. Is he gone, or does he have a spot to come back to, or is he just gone?
So, from what I understand, I mean, he's not with the program right now. I would say that it's probably unlikely. Again, without getting too much into the situation, but if a guy not only steps away like that, but he's out training on his own and all that. Here's my thing, Rudy. It's like, you see what's coming in. Yeah, you see what's coming in at DB. So it's like, it's not that I don't think the kid can't be a good player, but whatever he's dealing with, it's like a year from now, is he going to want to come back and say, "Ooh, is this the best situation for me? I've been away from it. Maybe go closer to home or something like that." So I would say I'm not exactly like penciling him in
Yeah.
right now for the
You were at
team.
the Amir Sears commitment
Yeah,
day. That looked pretty outstanding. Like the
that
crowd
was
there
awesome.
at House of Sport and Dick's. People got to understand that Dick's and House of Sport are literally not the same store. I'm sorry. I go to Dick's by my house. It's like a closet. I went to that House of Sport in Kendall and Dayland. I was like, oh my God, this
Dude,
place is ridiculous, man.
I told Gabby Urrutia, I was like, dude, Gabby, we got to make a petition to do all the commitments here because it's nice and pretty centrally located. Obviously, it's not it's more south, in the grand scheme of things, but
Yeah.
they're at Dayland, and it was an awesome scene, Rudy. It was so
Yeah.
cool to see all the there was a couple different youth football teams out
Yeah.
there, and I think it was CBS Sports or 247 and them did the
Yeah.
official stream. They did a good job with it, but it's like it made it it was cool, man. They did a real good job with it, and that was just a statement kind of event there. So
Look at, I
yeah, man.
mean,
Cool.
you go back, you've been doing this now for what, like 10, 12, 13 years
Yeah, I
between
mean, I
inside and
started
you.
doing it. Yeah, I started doing it in 2011, really, and I took a 4 or 5 year break when I was an agent. But this is
So
covering it for a while, for double digit years now. Yep.
So covering it back then when we were getting the second best guy or the
Yeah.
third best
Third.
guy from every school. Like so
Yeah.
we get Joe Yearby, FSU gets Dalvin Cook. You got the American Heritage boys, they go to Georgia and Alabama. I mean, you're losing guy after guy after guy, but you're getting the second best guy. That became my thing. I was like, I guess we're gonna get the second best guy again, and that guy usually doesn't amount to anything, and the whole nine. When you see it now we're getting the guy. Now,
Yeah.
I will tell you that whole Mark Matthews commitment show that he
Yeah.
put on was really annoying to me.
Yeah.
I did a
Definitely.
live on it. I'm sorry, you cannot put on our cap and then throw it in the freaking stands like that. Like he hoodwinked me there for because I know you had some stuff where you said he's leaning towards A&M and that's depressing me. I'm like maybe he changes his mind again and
Yeah.
does that crap. That would never have happened at St. Thomas under George Smith. Like they didn't allow that stuff to
Yeah.
happen. But
Yeah.
would you still welcome a guy like that after he pulled? Like it's one thing to commit to somebody else, but when you toss him our cap and
I agree.
it,
Well,
it it
listen,
annoys me.
it definitely annoys me, and I think all Canes fans felt a certain type of way about it. What I'll say is this. What I'll say about it is this, Rudy.
Yeah,
I think Mario and Mirabal, which are the two guys making the call in this case, right? They've earned the right for us to kind of be like, you know what? If they think we should still be recruiting a guy, we should probably still be recruiting a guy, right? Like
he's a
I
beast.
trust their
He's
and
a beast.
and I trust their judgment in terms of the care. Like we know he's a beast, but I trust if they think that he's a guy who could still be brought into the locker room and not, that sort of thing, not be who he is on a day in, day out basis, right? Maybe, listen, Rudy, maybe the kid got caught up in the moment, right? Like maybe he did. It's still not a good look, right? Like I'm not condoning it, but I have a feeling because look, Miami is still in contact with him, and if he wanted to flip to Miami tomorrow, Miami would gladly take it.
Absolutely.
So I have a feeling, a hunch that there was a conversation behind the scenes as well from Mario Mirabal. Hey, listen, we respect you and we still want to recruit you, but what you did there is not going to play either. Like I don't think that recruiting is still going on the way that we know there's still the contact if that conversation wasn't had, which is the flip side of it that I think maybe Canes fans, again, not happy with how he handled that, but Mario has too much respect for the program to be, still kind of in contact with a guy like that and still it be out there because listen, when it comes to recruiting messaging and stuff, they're very good with like stuff that they want out there will be out there and stuff that they don't want out there. So if they didn't want it, if they wanted to know, hey, we're not recruiting this kid anymore. Like, by the way, remember Caden Henderson, the linebacker, the 5-star, who one day to the next Miami was in, and all of a sudden it was like, hey, we're not recruiting him anymore. All right, well, we're not recruiting him anymore. They would have done something similar here if they felt like there was games being played. So that's what I would say in that situation.
So that's basically what happened with this Caden Henderson. It was like they didn't Because it seemed like he was way up there, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, what I would say is you recruit a guy and you feel like you're in the race, and if you kind of get word that it's going a different way, then messaging can be important in the recruiting world, right? Like you're not gonna let a if you have word from the kid that it's gonna go a different direction, and you don't want your name to be dragged to the mud necessarily, and you're kind of predicting that's the way it would go, then or you feel, I would say this, Rudy, or you feel like you're being used in a way to up negotiations with another school. I think that would probably be more along the lines of what happened there. But again, I say all of that and say that's not what's happened with Mark Matthews. Like they still are and by the way, we can wake up one day this week and see a report that says Miami's no longer, and then I would say, okay, something has changed there. But as we stand today on August 9th, that's not the case.
DJ Jacobs. I know we're working on him for a flip. I'm sure we're long playing. I presume we're going to long play it because you'd rather flip him in December than flip him in October. What are your thoughts of that and him? I mean, because I know that all the projections initially were Miami, and then he picks Ohio State. He's down here. He's visiting here.
Yeah.
He has a younger brother who's a big time recruit as well. Anything that you got there? Or
so a couple different things, just to go back to what you said about, it probably in Miami, and I've told this story on multiple shows before, but I'll say it again here. Up until 10 minutes before the announcement, there was one graphic, the same way that CBS Sports did his interview, did the Amir Sears announcement of the day.
Yeah,
there was one graphic made for DJ Jacobs up until 10 minutes before, right? And I have this on great authority.
Okay.
And people were scrambling to get a new graphic made for Ohio State because Miami was where he was going to go. What I'll say is, talking to an Ohio State insider last week, they expect him to end up at Miami. Miami has felt pretty good here the whole process. I've been. The reason I've kind of been skeptical is because, especially going back to like when they were pursuing both him and Jaden Bryant, right? And Jaden Bryant wasn't committed. I was like, you have the funds to get two top DNs in the country, number one cornerback in Dante. I'm like, man, I just don't see how it works out numbers wise, but very much so like we've talked about here. When you look at the fact that there are so many reports coming out about Miami still being in and I know for a fact that they are, and they are continuing to work on it, right? Miami wouldn't be throwing themselves out in this conversation if they weren't in the ballpark numbers wise, right? We've talked about this with other recruits in the past. Like, remember Tristan Keys last year, the receiver who ended up at Tennessee? Yeah. Like there was a lot of talk about Adidas being involved there. Adidas is something that's a big part of the picture here with DJ Jacobs, because he's one of their 6 high school guys, I guess, that they've signed in this class. Amir Sears being one of them, Nick Lanier being another one. And without getting too far into the details of how this stuff works, if you are an Adidas athlete and you go to a Nike school, you can still go to the Nike school, right? Jeremiah Smith is an Adidas athlete. He goes to Ohio State Nike school. Yeah. But you can only wear the apparel off the field or not in the building, right? So your deal with that company is not going to be as big because you can't wear it everywhere else. And sometimes that can mean doubling or tripling the amount of what a player's deal is, right? Yeah. So if you're a DJ Jacobs and you get your NIL package outside of just your NIL package from the school, but you're getting a bigger deal. And by the way, that's why it's another reason why I should say Tennessee's also still very much in the picture for him, because Tennessee is a prominent Adidas school as well. These schools just want these guys to end up Adidas schools because then they're playing in the gear, they're always in the gear, all that. They don't want to see their top assets, so to speak, go play at Nike schools. So they're going to be incentivized. There's nothing illegal about this, by the way. This is just how the game goes. But But that's a big factor here, I think, when you talk about DJ Jacobs and his recruitment, quite frankly. And then obviously Miami has the development factor, and quite frankly, Ohio State right now, they don't have that same pipeline at defensive end. So
Have you ever been to Columbus?
I have. I went to the game in 2010. Was
Why the
it?
hell? Why the hell would any guy from South Florida ever want to move to Columbus, Ohio? I went there for New Year's when they
Well,
lost.
yeah, and Jacobs he's from what, Atlanta area. So I
Yeah,
mean, that's Atlanta and Miami a little bit more similar than Columbus, Ohio there, and
bro. You want to know the funny story? I was actually in Columbus, Ohio, because my wife,
okay,
her best friend was going to school, was in her residency for med school
okay,
at Ohio State, and they played Georgia in that semifinal game.
okay.
And we're in a club, and the game's on. And as the balloons are dropping and it's turning 12, that guy's
Uh-huh.
hooking that kick way left and shanking it. And they're like crying, happy, sad at the same time. And I'm laughing my ass off because I'm like, fuck Ohio State.
Hey, listen, nobody deserves that more than them, man.
I mean, it was hilarious because these people didn't even know how to react. Like, should we be, we're drunk and shit. Should we be happy? No, we're not happy. We just lost. Happy New Year.
That was a beautiful sight to see. That was a
You know,
beautiful sight to
because
see.
like there are people like when you talk to certain people about like the rivalries, the teams that you hate the most, as far as Miami is concerned. Like when I grew up, Florida is
Mhm.
hatred. Like, but then I know people that think that they hate FSU more than life anything on earth. And I'm like, FSU plays us, man. Florida's the one that bitched out and doesn't want to play us anymore,
Right.
or tries to finagle it. The scumbags at Notre Dame. I mean, trash can ass place. I hate them. I hate Ohio State. Like
Ohio State.
those are
Yeah,
the
Ohio
it's
State. Hate
really
them.
it's Florida, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Those are like the three teams that I hate. Like,
Hmm.
so you can only imagine that when Ohio State played Notre Dame in the national championship, I'm like, come on, man.
Listen, you know what a telltale sign that we were down was we were rivals with Louisville for a little bit, man. I mean, and still, Louisville's not. I like Louisville. That's another school that I kind of like to be good
Yeah.
because like it's good for the conference, and they put some money into football, here and there. And I think
Mhm.
Brom's a heck of a coach, but that's when you knew that we were dropping a little bit, man.
Yeah.
We were fighting these guys, man, and it was I'd rather be with some of these other schools we're talking about here.
And even with all that, no matter how bad we were for so long, these people would still come in and do this shit. And I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
if you're coming in here saying you're supposed to beat us, why are you doing all this? Like,
Remember UNC? Remember
yeah.
UNC? Ryan
Oh,
Switzer and Marquise
oh,
Williams? Yeah.
God. That stuff disgusts me because it's like you came, so really you don't really believe that you're supposed to be this. We have more talent than you, but we're just being coached like trash for so long. We had coaching issues and all the problems that within the
Mm-hmm.
program. Malachi Tony, though, I want to ask you about him. Are we here if it's not for this kid? Are we here? All the other things you needed a kid like this who's up at 5 o'clock in the morning in the weight room working to where you got Bryce Fitzgerald last year saying, I saw Mally in there, I'm in there. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, his entire what he is, what he has meant. These kids love him. High school players love him because they're like almost contemporaries. They're almost the same age. He's 18
Mm-hmm.
still. I mean, it's amazing. The kid's 18 years old and he's on top of the world. I mean, God bless him. But what he's done just and heck, we didn't know he was going to start that game against Notre Dame until game day
Yeah.
or when the ball was kicked off. I mean, because I know there was questions as to who would start at that time.
Yeah. Remember they
How
had Tony Johnson there, who was a vet, who came in there, and even like JoJo had been injured, but we didn't know about him. But to answer your question, no, we wouldn't be here because we
yeah.
were looking for. I did a video on this the other day, right? And it was kind of connected to Amir Sears's commitment, and a moment that happened there with a youth football player. But Malachi sparked really because you outside of just like the fact that they didn't have the trenches where it needed to be and all that, you missed out on these elite skill position guys for how many years, Rudy? Like
A long time.
you had to go back to Philip Dorsett being the last first round pick as a wide receiver, right? But you got now Malachi comes in, and you had a couple guys along the way that you thought could be, Stacy Coley, right? Who was good, but he just never really physically developed and never really hit his peak. And a couple of, Mark Pope was a big recruit, but same sort of deal there. But you had Malachi do what he did last year, and it's now set off this chain of events of you get Nick Lanier committed, you got Amir Sears committed, and potentially now hopefully riding into that next class of Bryson Wright, who's a freak of nature and in that same line of recruits. But that was the missing piece, because we know bread and butter is always going to be offensive and defensive line, but it's still college football. You need explosive playmakers. This is not 1970s smash mouth football. Even forget that. The great Miami teams all had elite playmakers, Rudy, and it had been way too long until Miami had that. There was a couple guys over the years. A Duke Johnson, right, was a guy who would have been like in this sort of team would have been. Imagine him with Mark Fletcher as the change of pace, as the duo, right? Which we love. We love Pringle and we love Marty Brown and what Lau can do. But there's certain pieces over the years you could say, okay, let me grab I would love an Elijah Arroyo on this team right now.
Oh my God.
I would love a David Njoku on this team right now.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
I think that's
for sure.
But you needed that elite playmaker, and that's now put off this chain of events, Rudy, where, hey, Ruben, there's guys who have made decisions to stay home, like a Ruben Bain, right? And that like we can't forget about those guys. And Mark Fletcher, who was committed to Ohio State. But something different about those guys with those electric playmakers with a ball in their hands has a different impact on the youth than some of these other.
Of course.
Positions. Yeah.
Funny story. I covered Duke Johnson's first varsity football game at Norland. And he was incredible in that first game. Yeah. He was a freshman. It was incredible. He was so good.
He was one of the smallest guys on the field. But
like the guys that I remember covering, like back that names that you mentioned, like Stacy Coley. I'd be at almost every one of his games because I lived in Oakland Park at the time. So I would be at almost every Northeast game because I was covering it for whether it was the Herald or the Sun Sentinel. And you watched him, and he was fantastic. I remember a game where he broke his thumb and stayed in the game. Like his thumb had popped. And
his coach was a former Cane. Who was it? I'm sure.
Donnell Bennett.
Donnell
Bennett was his coach.
And there you go. Yeah.
But they had some good squads back then at Northeast High School. They're not good anymore,
they did.
But they had some good teams.
It's changed. It's that the whole high school scene has changed, man. I've gotten back into it now since Cane's Pulse has started, because I've been going to a lot of the high schools and covering a lot of this stuff. But it's a different scene, man. Different. The transfer stuff is we say it's difficult to follow college, man. It's difficult to follow the high school stuff.
It is. Like my
son, guys would transfer now, like right before the season too.
No, my son, he goes to Cardinal Gibbons now, starting in 9th grade, and he's been working. They had their fall practice, and they just played their they had a whatchamacallit, officials thing, and we had this kid Champ Norwood, who's a really good wide receiver at Gibbons. He's gonna be a sophomore. Kid's a nice player, man. I mean, he's got a few offers from across the country, but you see these kids, right? Like I'm watching DeMarcus DeRoche on Friday, and I'm gonna see him pretty much every week for the entire season because I'll be at all their games, and but they lost a quarterback. Like they had a backup quarterback who he transferred a week ago out.
Yeah.
To Boca Raton, and it's like you worked out all summer, and a week before.
How do you put together?
It's hard.
It's hard because it's not. There's no rules around it. And look, I always understand that everyone's got to look out for their own good, right? Like if you're not going to have an opportunity to play as a kid, you want to play, and the parents want the kids to play. Like that's natural. And unfortunately, again, it just comes down to the fact that there's not really rules in place for it to be enforced a certain way. But would you like to have a cap on NIL? So it's yes and no. So here's my thing.
Hmm.
They're trying to do a cap on that. They're trying to do a cap right now through kind of the bill that we've talked about, which
Hmm.
I don't think is going to get approved, at least not now. Um, and they're trying to say, okay, schools can only spend this much.
Yeah.
Here's my issue, right? I am cool with there being a real cap on, um, just like there is in the NFL. Yeah,
Hmm.
an NFL team can only spend this much, right, within the rules. Here's where is an issue, Rudy. There are boosters who own companies.
I think I
Okay.
heard you say that on your podcast. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
And if a booster who owns a company that is,
Yeah.
a whatever it may be, it could be a clothing company, it could be a
Yeah.
restaurant. Fair market value, Rudy, is what someone's willing to pay you out there.
Absolutely.
And guess what? If there's a booster in College Station that says, I want to pay this guy $500,000 to be the face of my company, which and you know what? We don't even have to use the example. We had this here at Miami with John Ruiz, right, with Life Wallet, and I've told this story before as well. As an agent who had multiple players signed to deals with them, I had to do the amount of paperwork, and this was all done 100% legitimately, real deal. And these guys had to go shoot commercials there. They had to go do interviews. Like it was, they had to do work for this money. And what were they doing, Rudy? They were promoting Life Wallet. They were
Hmm.
promoting his brand. That is a real marketing deal. You can't tell John Ruiz, who, by the way, signed athletes. People don't remember this, from other schools. He was signing He was
Yeah.
signing punters and long snappers from all across the country. Right?
Uh-huh.
How are you going to tell him this player, this player's not worth that? He decided what the worth was. Right? That's free market. Right? How can you stop that from happening? That is the difficult
Yeah.
part. If you want to then say no boosters can be involved, that's a whole nother argument. But then you're going back to the old days, and I have a
Yeah.
hard time. I have a very, very, this is maybe the agent in me speaking, but I have a hard time dictating how much what a player can make, because what the NCAA is saying is we are going to be able to hold the power to say what a player's value is. And if a company, let's say Taco Bell, gives a player $50,000, but then we come in and say, no, the deal should have only been worth $20,000. Why are you guys making that call? And then they would give them basically the power to punish schools again, which they haven't had the power to do
Yeah.
because everything's been tested in court. So would I like a cap? I think it would be cool for the sport to have a cap, because it's gotten, things have gotten a little out of control. But then I say it's a free market. Are you like, that's a slippery slope to argue with, in my opinion.
No, it's tough because I mean, heck, I remember back in the day, if they had simply just raised the stipends up, we probably would never gotten here. If they had just made
Yeah.
it a real living amount of money that these guys could live on, because they were living on nothing, they wouldn't need to take anything because they'd be getting enough money to live. It would have been. Yeah, I mean, it still takes something, whatever.
Really, what it
Um,
is, Rudy, this whole thing, as Juan Manuel says here, he says it's the poor SEC is who wants the cap, right? They
of
want
course, the
this thing
poor
to go
SEC.
back to what it used to
Yeah,
be,
yeah,
right? And they were getting away with 40, 50,000, 30, 40, 50,000 dollars and a car, and
yeah.
that was all they had to pay the 5-star recruits to get them.
Hmm.
And now, because the playing field's level and they can't kind of compete the same way, they're very concerned, and they're the ones who are. It's funny because the SEC and the Big Ten they weren't on board, but I think that was all performative. I think that they wanted certain things this whole time. They finally got them, but they're the ones who brought this whole thing to the forefront anyways, because they're the ones who are saying spending's getting out of. Who are the ones spending the most money? It's the Big Ten and the SEC anyways. So it's all very what's the word I'm looking for? It's a lot of people who are talking out of both sides of their mouth. I'll
Wow.
put it to you that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, heck, I remember. A true story. I went to Florida State for a year and a half. It was
Okay.
as far away as I could get from home. Miami cost too much money.
Mm-hmm.
and I would see the football players, and they had their own camp. They had their own dorm. Basically, it was the Burt Reynolds Hall at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it was all football players, and they would be rocking whatever they. I mean, you see some of the cars. You're like, then you remember you're in Tallahassee. There's nothing in Tallahassee. I
Mm-hmm.
was living in Tallahassee when Miami lost 47-0 in 1997. That was dreadful. My neighbor was a Florida State football player. And I left that game in the end of the third quarter. I never leave
Mm-hmm.
games early. I went back to my apartment. I was like, I can't take this crap. We're down 30-0. And you remember you're in Tallahassee. They don't snitch unless you're Peter Warwick and Lavernius Coles and doing stuff that's like robbing a store or whatever.
Nothing's going on over there,
Like they
man.
don't tell you they're never gonna snitch. Like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, what the hell is there? Nothing. What's in
No.
Columbus? Nothing.
Mm-mm.
Columbus might be a pretty big city actually, but I only envisioned it as a college town when I
Yeah.
went there, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this place is bigger than I thought, but it revolves around Ohio State. Like that's the largest employer in the damn city.
Yeah.
Um, so you look
Well,
at stuff
same thing
like
with Gainesville.
yeah, Florida.
You saw you saw what they were covering up during Urban
Oh my
Meyer's,
God. And so
time there. That's
while they're doing that, when you're down here, at least I'm older, so but you'd have Miami Herald writers like making their careers off of burning
mm,
Miami down.
yeah,
And you're sitting here like you're the local writer to this school and you're trying to destroy I as a kid, it's like you're trying to destroy it
yeah.
by trying to dig up everything while these schools, other places, if they do that, they'd have to sleep with one eye open
Hmm.
because that would
Exactly.
not be
They're
tolerated in those
protected.
cities. They're protected
They're
like
protected.
crazy.
That's all they've
So
got though, too. Like you
yeah,
said, it's like that's their economy.
yeah.
Is those 7 home games a year that they get, right? And everything is around that. And look, luckily we have gotten like this program back on track, and you understand you have to win and you have to make it your economy to be able to do what we're talking about in the NIL
Yeah.
and stuff. Like all of this is important, but at the same time, like the city of Miami, this is only the Canes football is only a drop in the bucket of what we've going on
Mhm.
here now. Like you said, because the media is set up a certain way, like they're not trying to protect. This is a TMZ clicks, so social
Mhm.
media world. Luckily, Miami is a pretty a lot of the guys that they're bringing in these days have, like I said, been pretty stand up citizens and have been really really
Mhm.
good role models on and off the field. And you see, by the way, how great is the Mark Fletcher, his mom getting the whole, we were talking about it a little bit before
The
the show,
RV from
the
Michael
RV
Irvin.
setup. That's the good part of the NIL era, right? Like those are the cool stories you like to see. But yeah, the Big Ten and SEC, man, these are the programs that they're spending the most. Right? I love when the LSU's. Right? I've gone over this on Kane's Pulse. Like LSU fans talking about Miami only flips Jaden Bryant because of a big bag and all that, and it's like,
Yeah, bullshit.
well, you listen.
Their whole
That
damn
might be
program is
part of
based
it.
on that.
What do you exactly like? You guys are
The same
paying
shit.
Brian Kelly all this money. You guys are paying Lane Kiffin $90 million over the next whatever years. So you guys are just you're telling on yourself that you'd rather go out there and spend all this money on firing coaches than put it into the players. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why you have to go hire a new coach right now. I don't know, but
Which player? I know we've been on here for a little while. I want to let you go in a minute. Which player or players do you think that we will see a lot from that we maybe don't know about or didn't think about that you're seeing or you're hearing uh, through the first week and so forth? I mean, only less than a month away now from
yeah.
Stanford. Which player or players do you think will surprise us in this season?
I'll start with Ben Congdon, a guy that I've been pushing this one for a little bit, not because we've had so much hype on Jackson Cantwell and he deserves it and he's going to be a stud. But Ben Congdon, coming from small town in Ohio, right? Ohio State, as we've talked about Ohio State here, didn't really recruit him. They got on him really late. Miami was his first major offer, and then Alabama, Penn State, Florida, some of these other schools came. He is someone that, again, because of Cantwell, I think he's been overshadowed in that class. Joel Irvin, another one, but I think Congdon in particular has a chance to start here, Rudy. I think he's got at right guard. It's a really nice battle between him and Max Buchanan, I'd say, and it really wouldn't surprise me to see kind of similar to how we saw last year with Sampson and Matt McCoy at left guard. But Ben Congdon, and people might say, yeah, that's not a sexy name. He's an offensive lineman, but if you have potentially two starting freshmen on an offensive line there, I mean, it's not a cause for concern. It's more like, man, to me, the foundation of that line moving forward looks really, really exciting there. So I would say Ben Congdon, I'll give you a little wild card there with Joel Irvin as well, because he's a guy who did not practice in spring because of a knee injury. He's fully back and he's looking as athletic and as big as anyone on that line. On the defensive side of the ball, I'll go with Omar Thornton. And that may not, it's not really much of a sleeper because we saw this guy in the spring game, had an awesome spring game, and was the first transfer to commit to Miami. But dude, I just think he brings you that perfect mentality in terms of a guy who's willing to hit, who's going to be a nice, not the same exact player as Keontae Scott, because I think he's more of a box player than Keontae Scott had a little bit more in terms of, I think, coverage ability. But he's almost going to be like an extra linebacker for you, I think, at times, which he's going to be the perfect fit in terms of the thumping ability that he brings, and people aren't going to want to go across the middle when he's there.
Who is going to play right? I guess it's right up back on punt. Who do we got there blocking on the right side of the punt?
Listen, I'll tell you what, the guy who's wearing number 87 right now is Gavin Mueller, who's 80, who's a tight end.
Tight end also.
And he's, playing in a spot that would probably be similar to what Bauman played last year. Let's hope that he has a little bit more success on that one. But yeah, it's crazy though, Rudy, when as much as we can laugh at it now, right? But that's the margins. That's how
it's like that, bro.
That's what these games come down to. And I was talking about it with someone the other day. The what if of if Miami ends up and scoring a touchdown on that last drive, right?
Yeah.
Is crazy because Bauman actually, nobody remembers the catch that he made on 3rd and 15 on that drive. Yeah, that was actually a really nice catch. That was he had to high point the football. It was actually a pretty good throw by Beck, but he took a hit, and that's a huge what if because like we would have gone back and said, man, what a way that Bauman rebounded in that game by making that reception there, and that's not what the narrative is at all.
No.
So.
You like the way? Do you like punters that do that rugby punt? I'm old school. I remember the Reggie Roby punts back. Like air that thing out. These rugby punts, I hate them.
I don't love them either. It's like you said, they've had success with it though, right? Yeah. So it's hard for me to really. We had that Fiegels stretch there that was kind of ugly, and then Headley came in and saved things, but
yeah.
No, I'm. You know what? I've been pretty happy with the success of the Aussie style punting here. That would be the one, though, man. Ugh. Still sticks. Terrible. We're never gonna forget that one.
Yeah, I always tell my son, you never forget. You always remember your losses over your wins. Like I still haven't gotten over 2001 Ohio State. I don't think I'll ever get over it. And I'm not going to get over this thing from Indiana, man. I can't. It won't get over.
You know which one sticks with me from early in my life there too. Early in my Canes fandom is the Tennessee loss in the Orange Bowl. I actually think Sean Taylor muffed the punt at the end.
Was it like 10-6? The 10-6?
Yeah, it was a really low.
Brock Berlin.
Game.
Berlin.
Yeah.
That was
That was
I'm
like
an effing soldier. That was I'm an effing soldier,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That was Kellen Winslow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
That's another one that stuck with me from early on, man.
Yeah, those hurt, man. I mean, those losses hurt. I'm sure FSU fans are still sick about 1991 and Wide Right 2 and
I'm
they never
sick
go.
about that. Remember what year was it that we missed the extra point that we had tied
Oh
it up?
yeah, we lose 20 to
Kaya
19.
Kaya to
Yeah,
Coley to tie
yeah,
it, or
and we
what we
lose 20
thought to
to
tie it up, right?
19. Yeah, I mean those things make you sick. I mean, there's no question about it, man. But no, bro, I appreciate you jumping on here with me
Of
tonight.
course.
It's we're gonna be here every Sunday night. I mean, I will be Hurricanes Unfiltered live. Peter Rees, he has Kane's Pulse. He's crushing it with this podcast. It is by far the most detailed podcast out there. You need to go check it out. I'm sure a lot of you already know all about it. But if you haven't subscribed to his podcast, please do subscribe to it because he's putting out amazing. You did an awesome thing where you flew over to Houston and you met with
Yeah.
Ian Beal. That
Yeah.
was so cool. I
Yeah.
mean,
Great kid,
and that was
man.
right when you started the podcast.
Yeah,
It
that
was
was
like
my first one.
that
That
was
was my
like you
first one.
like
Yeah.
that's so cool, and that takes
I
so
went
much
down to
work.
Key West to see Josh
Johnson.
Johnson, the D tackle. I
Mhm.
saw Javon Dawson as well from St. Louis. I'm gonna go up your way. I gotta check
Yeah,
out
the roast,
DeMarcus DeRoche. Yeah, I'm setting that one up soon, man. So
but no,
excited for high school season, man. It's here, man. It's here, and
yeah.
we've got some good guys to watch locally, man. We can't always say that.
No,
Unfortunately, they're coming to Miami. So
I'm definitely gonna be back more into high school football because I did high schools for a very long time, and then you just get older and you have kids and you have a wife and
mm,
can't spend every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night at a high school football game.
yep,
You
yep.
know,
It's fun, but it does eventually start to wear on you a little bit. But I'm
you-
excited. I'm excited for this year, man.
you're a big basketball guy, though. I know that.
Yeah,
You-
huge basketball guy.
Jay
Huge.
Lucas, what this
Yeah.
guy has done in 1 year, and is there a possibility that we can actually get Malik Renault back into the fold with this thing? I
Dude,
mean, that's going
it's
on.
so I've been trying to track this one. From what I understand, Miami would definitely have him back.
Yeah,
The I guess number one is they got to remember they've had their whole roster kind of set, so they've got to figure out
yeah,
where the money's going to come from there because this would be a high. I mean, he would be one of the best players in college basketball.
yeah.
Um, and hopefully could have I'm gonna hopefully have some news on that this week to see if at least if it's even
Possible.
because I haven't spoken to him or anyone around him yet to see if they've had discussions or anything. But dude, if they just like if they were to get that one done, it's already a top 15, top 20 roster in the country. Like that's a super contender. Like that's a contender to win the whole thing. And I'm not exaggerating there. That's a guy who was one of the best players in the ACC last year. We're not talking about him, being an NBA player. Obviously, he went undrafted and he was in the summer league and he's on, available right now. And he could go play in Europe and get paid well over there. But if you were able to add him to the mix, man, that would be crazy. I just think, man, Jay Lucas, as you alluded to, what he was able to do in year one, and really for me, man, what makes me excited about it is from everything I hear, man, he really loves working at Miami, and I think we've all kind of assumed, oh man, his ceiling is like we were talking about football. We feel good about Mario staying, but it's like, man, we understand that the investment in basketball at Miami may not be the same as it might be in other places. But I will say this. The ACC basketball deal makes Miami money, right?
Yeah.
And if the basketball program keeps progressing and is able to be a moneymaker, we know that it's not going to be the same moneymaker as football, but the people running the school and running the athletics program, this is a business. And if they see the success, they will continue to put money into it. I think the one thing that is very interesting about, like, if you're a coach out of Miami and you're Jay Lucas, you don't have to worry about having like the scrutiny on you all the time, which sometimes is a very nice thing. Last year, True Washington missed 4 or 5 games. He was suspended, and definitely he had an incident in practice with a teammate. It didn't, but Jay Lucas was asked about that one time. If he was at Kentucky, he would have been asked about that 3 times a day. It would have been annoying to him. You can kind of fall under the spotlight. He's chilling in the Gables in South Miami and Coconut Grove. Basketball too, Rudy, it's a little bit different. Actually, it's not different. It's just like football, where all the pro athletes are coming down here in the off season to train.
Yeah.
It's a hub for guys down here. So it's a kind of an easy, like the whole blue blood thing. It's a little bit, it's a washed argument to me, man, because it's like, yeah, you can go to a Kentucky, great historical program if you're a player, but like you got to live in Lexington, Kentucky year round, or you live in Coral Gables and you train here year round. You can go to Heat games a couple times a week if you want to. By the way, it's a different. Basketball players are wired a little bit differently. A lot of them want to be in a big city, and I think Miami is well positioned here moving forward. Man, I'm super excited about this team.
Have they locked in Jay Lucas? Is it because I mean I don't know if his dream job is to be at Duke or some other school, but is this a guy that we can lock in for a long time? Because I mean, what he did in 1 year again was amazing. He seems to be the players seem to love the guy the way he. Always watching them when they had the mask or whatever they would do. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, it just he seems like a fun dude. You'd never think like you look at him, he looks like he's 12. You never think he's a college basketball coach, but I mean, I thought he did a spectacular job. And
I'm more worried about NBA. I'm more worried about NBA
really?
Because his dad has NBA pedigree. His brother as well. Like I think in basketball a lot of times. The NBA, it's different than college football. Like there's guys who are college football coaches, but something about the NBA, you just saw with Dusty May from Michigan to the Mavericks, and he won the championship. But there's something about the NBA sometimes that is just looked at as like the pinnacle of the pinnacle of ball. And I think he grew up in those gyms, and it's. I personally would say that I would be more worried about losing him to that, but I also think that's still. He's only been a head coach for 1 year, so I'm not like oh, we're gonna lose him tomorrow. It comes down to this, Rudy. If the coach, and if he feels like he has the backing financially to go out there and get players, which 2 years in a row of 5-star recruits, right? Shelton Henderson and Caleb Gaskins. That's a pretty good start if you talk about investment. 2 years in a row with top 10 portal classes. I mean, that's a pretty good sign that you're investing, right? The center they went and got from Georgia, Somto Surreal, one of the higher paid centers I would say probably a top 5 paid center in the country. Caden Lewis was a first team all conference in the Big East as a freshman and you brought him over as a point guard. That's not a cheap, that's like bringing in, we talk about football terms, a starting quarterback who was first team all conference from a big conference in basketball. You're not, the actions have spoken pretty loudly here these first couple of years in terms of who you went out and got. And when we talk about in football, hey, it's this or bust. I'm not saying it's Sweet 16 or bust, but my personal expectations for this team is a Sweet 16 team that could make a deeper run. That's the investment that they've made. That's the talent level, and it's a natural progression. You were in the round of 32 last year. So
yeah. But Pete, man, I do appreciate it, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Ariz from Kane's Pulse. Make sure you go over there and subscribe if you haven't done so. It seems like everyone probably already has because they all know you very, very well in the comments. Appreciate you jumping on board, folks.
Of course,
I thank you. I'm excited about this season, more excited than I've been about a season in like over 20 years, to be honest, over 20 years. So, expectations, I love expectations. I'd rather have expectations than have no expectations.
For sure.
So,
imagine being an FSU fan right now. So
yeah, I mean, hell, I remember. I don't feel bad for him.
Nope.
I will say I did feel bad for them not making the national championship, the playoffs. That was outrageous in my opinion. You don't go undefeated win the ACC and not make the playoffs. I thought that was disgusting, and I do think there should be a 16-team playoff, not a 12-team. And 24 is ridiculous. Like if we're doing 24, just make it the SEC Big Ten Invitational and call a few of us others to show up. You know what I mean?
For sure. No,
But no,
no, no doubt about it.
I've always wanted a 16 team playoff. I think they should do the first two games on the higher seeds home field as well.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, because it does get cost prohibitive for people to fly to
for sure.
this bowl game, that bowl game,
No,
this bowl game, and back to back to
it
back
was
weeks.
tough.
So,
It was tough last year,
yeah.
man. I
Yeah.
think people are, and I think people are starting to make decisions for this like regular season and say,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
I'm, myself included, to be like, yeah, you know what, they make another run. I'm gonna want to go to, want to go to some of these other spots,
For sure.
that they'll be at this year. So hopefully.
Right.
But
But you know,
Rudy, man, it was awesome. It was
it
awesome
was awesome,
to
man.
be on with you today, man.
Thank you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, go subscribe to Pete's channel, Kane's Pulse. That's all. That's all we got. Every Sunday night, 8 p.m. I will be here, Hurricanes Unfiltered live. I'm sure we'll have Pete again at some point this
Yes,
season.
sir.
But God bless, man. Y'all have a great night. This is Hurricanes Unfiltered, powered by Come On Now, the podcast. Come on now.